A dramatic increase in North Korean soldiers near Ukraine's border with Russia happening right now. The Biden administration says 8,000 North Korean troops are massing on the Russian side, preparing to help the Kremlin fight against Ukraine in the coming days. Here's Defense Secretary Austin a short time ago.
Make no mistake, if these North Korean troops engage in combat or combat support operations against Ukraine, they would make themselves legitimate military targets.
The U.S. and South Korean governments have estimated that some 10,000 North Korean troops are in Russia. So today's stats suggest that most of them have now been sent to Russia's border with Ukraine. North Korea's potential involvement in Russia's invasion of Ukraine is deepening concern that the war there could expand. NBC's Courtney Cubey joins me now. Courtney, Secretary Austin says this is a dangerous and destabilizing development, and now the U.S. is reaching out to China, right? What are you hearing about that effort?
Yeah, that's right. So keep in mind here, one nation that has ties with both of these countries, Russia and North Korea, is China. The hope is that the U.S. can impress upon them that this is a potentially, as Secretary Austin said, destabilizing development and hopefully play on the fact that China may not be that happy about either of these nations getting closer militarily or economically or really politically in any way. But the reality is here, look, we hear the words destabilizing all the time. And I think what viewers need to know is exactly why the U.S. and other allies see it that way. If, in fact, these North Korean troops, as you mentioned, there's at least 10,000 that are in eastern Russia, about 8,000 have moved to Kursk, which is an area that Ukrainian soldiers have been occupying for a number of months now. There are Russian troops there as well. If, in fact, they move to the front lines and they're fighting side by side with Russian troops, the concern is that other allies may look at that and say, well, we need to start bringing troops into Ukraine, or we need to get more involved with troops on the ground there, and it could potentially expand this. The other big question here, Tom, is what happens if and when North Korean soldiers start dying or being seriously injured in combat? How will North Korea react? And I got to tell you, ever since these reports started a couple of weeks ago, I've been asking that question, and I don't have a solid answer. It doesn't seem that the U.S. or allies really know. The real concern here, though, is that if these North Korean troops are able to move into Kursk and really take a fight to the Ukrainian troops, it would free up the Russian soldiers who are there, and they could move back into Ukraine, and they could start another front there. So this really just provides additional manpower. The other big question that we really don't have an answer to yet is, how could these North Korean troops fight? We don't know that. They're not battle tested. So no matter how well trained they are, they really haven't been on the front lines in any kind of a real combat situation. For the U.S. side, they are working with allies. The U.S., the South Korean government, and the Japanese government put out this statement today condemning this action, calling on North Korea to no longer send weapons or troops. And again, all three nations saying that this action is potentially destabilizing and potentially expands the conflict outside of Ukraine even further. Tom.
You know, I read a UK report making the same note. They're not battle tested. The Russians don't speak Korean. The Koreans don't speak Russian. Coordination may be really difficult, and it becomes literally just throwing more men. Kind of this hamburger type of assault that we've talked about for so long. Courtney, also, you saw the video that we rolled there for a moment. North Korea today test-fired an intercontinental ballistic missile for the first time in almost a year, right? So is the rhetoric and the pressure and the reality just all heating up at once?
Yeah, so the South Korean government has been very forward-leaning about what the North has been up to recently, more so than, candidly, I can remember in some time. They warned that they expected that North Korea could do something like test fire an intercontinental ballistic missile, an ICBM, maybe even conduct their 7th nuclear test. We haven't seen that yet. U.S. officials who I've spoken with have said, look, we don't think that's in the immediate future, but they are watching it. So this is not completely unexpected. The big question in this is, what have they learned? North Korea has been trying to perfect a number of things to have not only a missile that would be intercontinental ballistic, meaning that it could fly really fast and really far, but that it actually has the ability to have a warhead, so an explosive that's married up with the missile that can survive re-entry into the atmosphere. Experts are watching to see if they may have been able to accomplish that with this test, Tom.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.